I'd like to touch on another couple of issues as I wrap up. The first is one that I know is a big one here for you all with all of its facets, and that's the environment. Last week, AIA attended a very important meeting up at ICAO in Montreal, brought together the aviation stakeholders in an effort to make sure that the global aviation community is going to pull together on emissions goals before the next Kyoto conference. That's the climate change conference that's coming up in Copenhagen in December. This is important because we do not want to have a patchwork of conflicting requirements as we're flying in a global airspace. We've got to make sure, of course, that we're responsible stewards of the environment, and we're going to meet our responsibilities, but it's got to be consistent with national objectives and what our technologies can do. So, I've got some news for you, and this comes hot off the press from Friday night. After a lot of input, and Randy Babbitt was up there representing the U.S., 50 other countries had their key aviation leaders, all in Montreal, urging very strongly that we set some standards that we could all adhere to. A consensus was finally reached on Friday night, and a declaration was issued setting goals for fuel efficiency improvement in the medium range, this is through about 2020, and the long range through 2050. What's most important to us here today is that the meeting directly referenced the uniqueness of business aviation by directing ICAO to, and I'm quoting here, explore the relevance of the new fuel efficiency metric to international business aviation. So they are paying attention. In addition, for the first time in the area of aviation and climate change, ICAO and the world's regulators have recognized that the industry's native expertise is important here, and they've called on us to play a leading role going forward in inviting us to, again, I'm quoting, further elaborate the implementation framework and strategies for the collective commitment of the international air transport industry. This is very important because I think, as many of you all know, on the emissions front, there was a time when it was really dominated by the airlines and by other considerations. And this is going to mean that we really do have, I think, the appreciation of the fact the system is going to increasingly be one in which business aviation globally is going to be playing a role. So it's exciting news, and I'm particularly pleased about that. Now, I'd also say, because we want to encourage the long-term health of the global aerospace enterprise and achieve the kind of level playing field that allows the U.S. aerospace industry to succeed internationally, there was another important event that happened, probably less noted at this point. But a couple of weeks ago, Bob Stevens, who's the chairman and CEO of Lockheed Martin, don't tell him I said that, and almost went into Rockwell Collins there. That was our previous chairman at AIA, Clay Jones. And the head of the Aerospace and Defense Industries of Europe, Alan Cook of Cabo, signed a statement endorsing a global set of principles for business ethics. These principles were developed by AIA and ASD working together, and they establish a common framework for ethical behavior in the global market. This has been a real challenge. There's no question about it. I know that many of you who work abroad have a very real appreciation of that. These principles address corruption, use of advisors, management conflicts of interest, and, importantly, respect for proprietary information. And we're looking to see the manufacturers on both sides of the Atlantic sign on to this very rapidly, because I think we all see this as a big common step forward. In today's global business environment, this common framework really is a tool to achieve a level playing field, because it provides assurance that the companies and countries that we partner with are all going to have a similar set of standards and a similar commitment. So, in closing, let me just mention one thing. At your seat, you see a brochure that was triggered initially because AIA is celebrating its 90th anniversary as a trade association. Yeah, our founders were Orville Wright and Glenn Curtis, among a few others, so we go back a way. But the idea here was not to celebrate history. It was, in point of fact, to look at the leading edge of what we're doing as an industry from the standpoint of technologies. So on every page, you'll see that we're highlighting where we're going and what's happening in aerospace in all three sectors. And we also combined that with the first ever National Aerospace Day on September 16th, which was to spotlight the contributions of the American aerospace and defense industry. I am very proud to say that the House and Senate both passed resolutions of recognition, and President Obama sent us a congratulatory message for this. You've got your, as I say, that there before you. But I'd also tell you the things that are kind of hard to see in a booklet, because we had a lot of events on Capitol Hill, including a march to the Hill by our supplier CEOs, and some inside the Beltway advertising, full-page ads in the Washington Post and places, reinforcing that tagline that I mentioned earlier, aerospace and defense, the strength to lift America. We encouraged our member employees, too, to reach out and thank their employees, because these are hard times, and they are the true patriots of our nation, for they work day in and day out that make us strong. This was our first effort to do this National Aerospace Day, and guys, it felt a little like pickup basketball. You're sort of making it up as you're going along and putting it together, but it was, by all accounts, a tremendous success. So we're hoping to involve more of you in this room next year in all of this, because I do think that reminding officials about the 2 million plus high-paying jobs across all 50 states that the industry supports is something that we have to do day in and day out. We do that daily at AIA, but at the same time, having a real special day to call it out, it's proving important. So let me close by just reading a little portion of the congratulatory message from President Obama, and I quote, "American-led research in applied science and technology landed men on the moon and inspired generations to believe that if we set our minds to it, we can achieve anything. This inspiration has fueled the aerospace industry's contributions to our nation, spurring innovation and the development of cutting-edge technology. Our leadership in aerospace has increased exports and helped us maintain our competitiveness in the global economy. As we continue to reach for the stars, let us recommit ourselves to excellence so that our children can realize what we only dreamt was possible." I think that says it all. These words do give us great encouragement, particularly here in Wichita, that we will get through this cycle, tough as it is, and that our voice is being heard in Washington. And by working together, we'll again be on top and we'll reach the stars. Thank you very much. Dave, a few minutes for a few questions? All right. If anyone has questions or advice or comments, I'm always good for that. Love to know about it. No? Over here? Hi.
You raised the next gen and the avionics training. It sounds to me much like the discussion for RVSM came in, and the industry picked that up, and you never hear anything about it now because the industry was able to move to it. Don't you think that would be the same with the next gen navigation systems and control systems?
I do, and RVSM, by the way, is a great success that we had all point to because we did handle that smoothly, and that was a major change. The only thing I would say is that the difference in cost from the standpoint of advanced altimeters to the kind of onboard avionics we're going to have with next gen, there is a quantum difference there. I also would say that for the most part we were in better shape as an industry during the critical implementation time for RVSM, although it happened over a period of time also. But the will, I absolutely agree with you. I think it's a great example. What I do believe, though, is that as operators of the system, we as taxpayers ought to give a hand to getting the equipage done, getting the avionics on board, because it will be a very long, drawn-out affair otherwise for folks who right now are in no financial position to take on something that is a true public benefit from the standpoint of everything from the environmental benefits to safety to let's cut out those delays that we know will come back. So that's the case I would make, but it's a good point. Any other comments or questions? Over there? Hi, Molly. Well, you know, it's like a lot of these things. Unit costs drop in technology dramatically if there is a certainty to it. One of the things that we don't as an industry do very well with is uncertainty. If you know what the budgets are likely to be and you know the time period, I think we will watch the costs drop and drop very significantly. It can be as little as around 10 grand for a GA aircraft, and I wouldn't be surprised if that didn't drop, to, and Jack's nodding, so I'm looking to the expert here, to hundreds of thousands of dollars, somewhere over $500,000 when you get to sophisticated retrofits on the transport category aircraft. And you start multiplying that by the number of aircraft in the system. We estimate if we restrict the equipage to a relatively narrow band of those who really need to fly in sophisticated airspace for the initial period, it could be as low as an investment of $6 billion. It could go as high as 12 if we really were equipping everybody that flies out there. And I don't think the 12 billion probably in a 3 to 5 year period is necessarily realistic. But do I think with the way we're spending money on other things, remember we just put out $8 billion on high-speed rail. Could we put another $1 billion a year for the next 5 years into the system to get this done and have it really up and going? Absolutely we could. So, you know, this is not as much of a stretch as it might have appeared in different days. Anything else? I thoroughly enjoyed being again in Wichita. Thank you.
Well, Marion, thank you for being here, and as is our tradition, we have a little something to remind you. It's not my notes, they're on the floor. A little something that we hope you'll put up in your office or someplace where you can see it. We know that time is a very important commodity for you, so we brought you something that shows you some time, and it obviously is engraved thanking you for being here today and for helping us make the Wichita Aero Club a tradition in Wichita. So thanks very much for being here.
Extremely handsome. Thank you. I will display it with pride. Thank you very much.
Here, you wanna-